Welcome to the Musari Podcast, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful day. If you're joining us from YouTube, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And if you are joining from Spotify, please be sure to drop a 5-star rating and also drop a comment. That's a fantastic way of helping us spread our comment that it favors our algorithm. So anyways, today I thought I'd really share my 2 cents after an experience I had this week. It's not a bad experience per se. It's more an event that I participated in, and I kind of heard a couple of comments that got me thinking a little bit. So yesterday I was at a Venture Crush event in New York City, right? So Venture Crush is basically organized by some of the prominent venture capitals in the country, mostly in the city, right? And they obviously do gather the community of startups within the city, right? And the way it works is you get into this forum, you find like there's normally a panel of 3 or 4 venture capital panelists, and they will be breaking down and discussing very pertinent topics, right? And most of the attendees tend to be startup founders. Some are early stages, some are looking for funding for their growing businesses. Some are probably more advanced in the exit phase or close to the exit phase. So the topic that was discussed yesterday was around branding, right? So I kind of expected to get in there and hear about branding strategies to kind of like just brand your product or brand your, company brand, like give a great brand experience of whatever you're building or whatever you're bringing to the market. But it seemed like the real agenda, the real context of branding was more from my diversity standpoint, right? They didn't actually mention the term DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, but they kind of like touched on the issue, right? So I did hear a couple of comments by someone who actually writes articles about the issue, and I did notice that people were quite uncomfortable. And this made me reflect back on the previous Venture Crush event that I attended in November, right? And that was a couple of days after the 2024 elections. And someone made a comment, kind of like alluding to the sentiment that the outcome of the elections kind of showed that the country wasn't ready for a female president. And the person also touched on biases against females and the startup ecosystem and startup communities in the country. So I did yesterday check a video by Erica Minihan on TED Talks in Boston, and she was sharing her 2 cents around the whole diversity issue. So she clarified in the video that she is a capitalist, but she gave some statistics that I wasn't too shocked by and I was aware of, right? So this statistic was around, the amount of money that goes to founders in the United States. So first of all, let me give a bit of context. So according to National Venture Capital Association, which is NVCA, and this is data from 2023, there were like 3,417 venture capitals in the United States that were involved in VC deals. And there were a total of 13,608 VC deals in the United States. And the total amount of capital invested was $170.6 billion, right? So this is 2023. Now, going to the video by Erica Minihan, I'm not too sure where the source of the data was from, but it looks very credible. She stated that in 2022 in the United States, only 1.9% of the capital that went to founders went to female founders, right? And it also said that only 0.4% went to Black founders. So the stats are quite alarming, right? So my intent here is not really to touch on the whole racial thing, but to mostly speak from my experience, right? I'm not going to give too much detail as to where I am in my own journey, but these are some gems that I'm really learning. So a couple of weeks back, I met, someone who's a former NBA player through a friend. Because sometimes you have a friend who is a friend of a friend. And, my friend's friend happened to be the boss of this former NBA player that I watched when I was a child, right? And I became well acquainted and I kind of connected with this former NBA player on a very personal level. And, as a result, I got introduced to people in his circle as his friend, right? And I also started building relationships with pretty prominent people, not only in the sports industry, but also in entertainment, right? I got to know someone who works in the studio and owns a studio where very prominent artists record, such as, Snoop Dogg, Alicia Keys, you name it. And I actually asked the person a question like, you're a successful person. How much of it will you attribute to your skill set and what you know? And how much would you attribute it to who you know? So he said that, success is 70% who you know, and it's 30% what you know. But he did tell me, listen, when you know the right people, the 30% is very important. Otherwise, you're going to know the people, but because you don't know your stuff, you're going to become irrelevant to the very important people that you know. So you still got to really hone your skills, whatever you do. So this whole thing kind of made me reflect on the book called Power Law, right? In this book, it pretty much talks about the story of the history of Silicon Valley, but more from a venture capital perspective. Because most of the times when we watch documentaries and we watch videos on the history of Silicon Valley, we talk about the history of the founders, how the idea came into being and how the idea evolved, how they raised capital, in some cases, how they went to the stock exchange and how they IPO'd the company and all that. This here talks more from a venture capitalist perspective, the whole process of identifying founders, the whole process of seeing the potential in the business, the thought process around the big checks that they wrote to help the business to scale. On the outside, it kind of looks like it's very meritocratic, but it's really about connections. I don't want to make this about race or gender. I don't want to go into that. I'm not denying any of the claims of biases, but I don't think I'm the most qualified person to make comments on that. But what I would like to say is connections and relationships are really important. From my own journey, what I'm noticing is that I personally do have relationships with people who represent family offices. They work for family offices that represent billionaire families. Some represent 3-4 billionaire families at a time. And when you start to connect with them on a very personal level, they also get to know you on a very personal level too. And what I'm noticing is it's really a game of trust. I don't want to talk about the race and gender variable. I'm going to talk more about the relationship versus competency variable, right? It's really about trust. And what I've noticed is that, the people that have the capital look at your skill set, they look at your integrity. Do they trust you? Is your idea good? Do you have the right skill sets to scale that business? Are you making the right moves in terms of assembling the team to make it happen? Do you understand the kind of technologies you need to assemble whatever product that you're building? Are you adopting the correct and appropriate methods with testing and validating the business concept or innovative concept that you have with potential users of the product that you're building and all that kind of stuff? And as a result, they start to develop this confidence and, the tone they talk to you with, they start talking about ideas of funding a lot of money into your business and, potentially one day IPOing it. They also look at the fact that you're tackling a problem that's sizable enough. And, does your product really touch on the pain points that could make it a product that the market's willing to pay for and all those kind of things? So this is just to say that, listen, if you're listening to this and you're a founder that is part of like an underrepresented group, whether it's LGBT, whether you're female, whether you're a person of color, I'm not going to tell you how to process any sentiment around biases. I really don't want to go there. Like it's a very big political fight that I'm just not really ready for or keen for. But do also pay attention to those things. Do continuously invest in yourself. Do build the right relationships. Obviously you're gonna know people who know people who know people that are either affiliated with venture capitals or family offices or all these institutions that have, big bags of capital and have the appetite to sign checks for businesses that have a lot of potential. Just make the right connections. Make the right connections, hone your skills, continue to work in your product, continue to read books on lean product development, books on scaling, books on, exiting. Above all, seek very good mentorship. Make sure that you got a mentor in your circle that is at a more advanced stage than you are. So let's say if you have like a B2B fintech business, it's just a hypothetical example. You want to be mentored by someone who has, scaled a very successful B2B fintech business and has probably exited that. That person's in best position to mentor you. You do find platforms such as Intro, which is an app where you can sort of like, you pay a monthly subscription and you can choose who you'd like to mentor you, right? And obviously, there are different levels to mentorship. You do find people that have exited 9-figure businesses. Some have exited businesses in the billions, some 7, some 8 figures. And, depending on the different levels, it's going to charge you a fee that's proportional to, the magnitude and the weight of the advice that person is going to give you. So anyways, those are my 2 cents. So in a nutshell, if I were to sum this up as a conclusion, I would say, just focus on what you can control, because with the whole diversity issue and the whole distribution of capital, the way it is distributed according to gender and race in the country, there is a very complex social construct aspect to it that I don't want to really unpack. But just focus on what you can control. You can control your development. You can control the development of the product that you're building. But there are some things that are kind of beyond your control. But anyways, let me know your thoughts. Maybe the question would be, to what extent do you think it's on merit, and to what extent do you believe that it's all about your connections and who you know? Please do drop a comment, and see you in the next episode. God bless.